My name is Fareen, and I'll be covering question one. That is, I'll be talking about the trends of carbon emission intensity in a national electricity market and its regions from the year 2019 to 2025. Before diving into results, let me briefly walk you through on the data source and how I worked with the data behind these graphs. So I basically used publicly available data from the Australian energy market operator, and specifically from their carbon dioxide equivalent intensity index page. So I choose to evaluate from year 2019 to 25 to capture both recent progress and current progress. I have used Python in Jupyter Notebook to process and visualize the data. Specifically, I've downloaded the CSV files containing carbon emissions from the year 2019 to 2025. Selected the key columns called region ID, settlement date, and carbon dioxide intensity index, and combined all the year files into one single data set. After cleaning the data set and formatting it and ensuring consistent data types, I have calculated the average carbon emission intensity per year, and both for the NEM and each region. I've used grouping and filtering functions in Pandas to compute yearly trend and visualize the average emission in form of a line graph. So let's start with what carbon emission intensity actually means. It actually refers to how much carbon dioxide is released to produce 1 unit of electricity. It is basically measured in kilograms per megawatt hour. So the lower the number, the cleaner the energy. As you can see in the chart here, across the entire NEM, we have seen consistent progress. So in the year 2019, there was this average emission was about 0.7 uh, kilogram per megawatt, and it has drastically reduced to 0.60 in the year 2025, which is about like 19% reduction over 7 years. I think the biggest improvements happened in the year 2022 and 23, with annual drops of 4.8 to 5.4 percentage. However, from 2024, you can see that the rate of decline slows, which suggests that reducing emissions further is becoming harder, maybe because easy wins have already been achieved. Now, let's zoom into five main regions. So New South Wales emission fell by 24%, largely thanks to the rise of solar energy and a slow exit from coal. The pace kind of slowed a bit in the year 2024, hinting a possible grid or policy limitation. If you can see Queensland, which is like an orange line here, Queensland made a slower progress with just 14% drop. And you have South Australia, which is a clear climate hero here, which is the green line. It has shown a massive reduction of 58%, largely due to the wind and solar dominating its grid. Then you have Tasmania, which is like the pink line, the red line here. It's a bit different. It's already mostly hydropowered, and so emissions have nearly been zero. You can see there is like no emission at all. Then you have Victoria, while still having the highest emission intensity, which is like the purple line on the top, has made only 21% improvement, mostly from solar and wind expansion and retiring brown coal stations. So what's actually driving this change? I think I've come up with five main reasons. One is surge in renewable energy generation. By the end of 2024, renewable made 46% of electricity. Rooftop solar alone grew like 18% in a year. Then you have decline in coal-fired power generations. Over 60% of the coal plants in Australia are now over 40 years old, and their reliability is like failing. So unplanned outages are happening during heat waves and are becoming common, especially in the state of New South Wales and Victoria. Then you have government climate policies and strategies like Powering Australia Plan. Climate strategies and frameworks like safeguard mechanism are pushing big emitters to clean up. Then you have, I think the next reason could be the energy storage technologies like batteries. Um, the usage of batteries has been growing in recent years of about like 91% in the year 2024, it's actually helping to store excess solar and energy and reducing fossil fuel use during peak hours. And finally, a change in consumer behavior. We could say that as per most of the surveys, over 80% of the households are taking action to cut energy use. So people genuinely want to be part of the solution. So I think, but with this, I can conclude that The national electricity market is clearly shifting towards a cleaner, more sustainable future. Some states are leading the way, while others are still catching up. But overall, the trend is promising and it's being powered not just by technology and policy, but also by everyday people who cares. And next, I'll hand over to Sobin.
Hello everyone, my name is Sobin and I will be presenting my analysis on intra-daily carbon emission intensity pattern across the national electricity market and its 5 regions. My goal was to understand how carbon emission intensity, the amount of carbon dioxide emitted per unit of electricity, varies throughout the day across the regions and how these patterns relate to household and company electricity consumption. To conduct this analysis, I extracted carbon emission intensity data for each region from CSIRO API, covering the period from January 2019 to May 2025. The data, updated every 5 minutes, provides a detailed picture of the emission trends. For clarity, I grouped the data into 4 daily periods: morning from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m., afternoon from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m., evening from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., and night from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. I calculated the mean emission intensity for each region and period, created an average NEM value, and visualized these trends using the line chart. These are my observations. Let's begin with the overall trend across all periods. Victoria consistently has the highest carbon emission intensity, followed by New South Wales, Queensland, the NEM average, South Australia, and Tasmania. Looking Look, Looking at the daily curve for the entire NEM, the emission intensity rises from morning, peaks in the evening, and drops sharply at night. This trend is largely driven by aggregate demand and the generation mix across the region. Let's break down the 3 most carbon dioxide intensity regions: Victoria, New South Wales, and Queensland. All these three show a similar pattern: a steady rise from morning to evening with a sharp decline at night. Victoria stands out as having the highest emission at every stage. Now focusing on South Australia and Tasmania, the two regions with the lowest emission intensity, we see different trends. In South Australia, emission drops from morning to afternoon, rises in the evening, then falls at night. In Tasmania, emission rises from morning through to night, though the overall level remains low. These differences are likely due to the higher share of renewable wind power in South Australia and hydro in Tasmania. From these visualizations, several clear patterns emerge. In most regions and for the overall NEM, carbon emission are highest in the evening. This coincides with peak electricity demand and reduced solar generation. Emission sharply drops at night, likely due to lower demand and greater share of cleaner renewable generation. South Australia and Tanzania unique pattern reflect to their reliance on wind and hydropower respectively. Now the household versus company consumption patterns. Turning to consumption patterns, most Australian households use most electricity in the evening, particularly between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. This is when demand and emission both peaks, as more fossil fuel generators are bought online to meet the surge. In contrast, many companies and businesses operate primarily during the day. The electricity use its concentration in the morning and afternoon, when carbon emission per unit of electricity are typically lower. This means that on average, businesses use electricity and have lower carbon emission per kilowatt than household use. Thank you.
My name is Don Jule, and I will be presenting part 3 of our report, which focuses on analyzing generator bidding behavior in 2025, with particular attention to differences between renewable and fossil fuel generators in the national electricity market. Let's begin with the bidding strategy of fossil fuel generators. And you can see in two charts, fossil fuel bids are highly concentrated at both extreme of the price band. So band 1 contains huge volume per megawatt at low or even negative prices. So this reflects baseload generators such as coal aiming for consistent dispatch. On the other hand, Banten captures bids at the market cap around 15,000 to 17,000 per megawatt hours. So likely used by peaking generators like OCGT. So the intermediate bands carry smaller but deliberate volumes, giving flexibility across moderate price scenario. So this dual peak strategy suggests fossil fuel generators combine guaranteed dispatch with the opportunity to earn higher margins during price spike. Now let's compare that with renewable generator, which is in this case are entirely solar. So the first chart show a front-loaded billing pattern. So most of megawatt is offered in band 1 and 2 at very low or negative price. So this technique is a dispatch first strategy used to ensure solar generators are accepted when sunlight is available. So negative billing is also supported by renewable energy credits or long-term contract that compensate for price dips. So as with fossil fuel, we can see small spike in butane, but it's likely the result of automatic or on template billing. So not an active expectation to dispatch at that price. So overall, the goal for renewable is not price maximization, but certainty of dispatch. So this brings us to the aggregated supply curve, so which visualize the relationship between price and cumulative megawatt offer. So renewable bits cluster tightly at the low end, forming a flat, steep curve, another confirmation of the dispatch first strategy. So fossil fuel bits spread more gradually across the price axis, showing a wider pricing strategy aimed at matching market volatility. So this visualization emphasizes how each energy type plays a different role. Renewable are inflexible but cheap, where fossil fuel are dispatchable and price responsive. Lastly, let's consider the effect of time of day. So for fossil fuel generator, average bid price remain relatively stable or slightly lower in the evening. Their output remain consistently across all hours. In contrast, renewable generator bids significantly lower in the afternoon when solar output peaks. So this shows that time of day strongly influences renewable behavior, where fossil fuel operate more independently of time. In summary, we've seen that generator bidding strategy are closely tied to technology type, market growth, and time of day condition. Renewable prioritize dispatch during solar hours, while fossil fuel balance stable generation with the opportunity for profit during demand spikes. Thanks for listening.
Hi, my name is Ankit, and I'll be continuing with the generator bidding behavior analysis, a comparison between April 2019 and April 2025. This is the fourth part of the report. So first we'll have is total megawatt offered by generation type, a comparison between 2019 and 2025. So in this case, we can see that black coal remains the dominant generation type. Its total megawatt generation has decreased slightly, but it's not much. Whereas in case of solar, we can see there is an almost 4 times increase in generation. In case of OCGT, we can also see that the generation has slightly increased. Also, we have to keep in mind that the overall demand has increased from 2019 to 2025. The new demand that is being created is mostly being covered by solar and OCGT. Next, we have is average megawatt offered per price band by generation type. So in this case, we can see that black coal is mostly bidding in band 1 and band 10. Band 10 is the most expensive one, and band 1 is the lowest price band. So in this, the bidding in band 1, this basically reflects a low cost base load generation. And in band 10, we can see that there is some price setting behavior by the black coal generating plants. In terms of OCGT, we can see that they are mostly bidding in band 10. So this is consistent as expected behavior from OCGT. These are expensive plant, and this is the expensive generation type, and as they can be switched on and switched off quite fastly. So this is the expected behavior from OCGT. From solar, we can see that they are mostly concentrated in band 1 to 6. If we look at in the next slides, we'll look at the data for solar comparison between 2019 and 2025. So solar was mostly based in band 1 in 2019, and it has recently moved to 4, 5, and 6 bands when we have moved to 2025. So the next we can see is the mean weighted price by region and generation type. So in terms of OCGT, the highest average, it offers the highest average price across all regions with very high price volatility. So these black lines show the price volatility of all these generation type in all these states. So black coal offers basically moderate and stable prices across all regions. So black coal is mostly being used in NSW and Queensland only. So solar beds often fall in negative to near zero range. So I mean, in 2019 they were mostly in negative range, and recently they have moved to, as I said in previous slide, that they have moved to price band of 4, 5, and 6. So they have moved to a slightly positive range. But in Queensland, we can see that they are still in negative range. So this basically shows that the OCGT is because the volatility is high, so we can see that there is some strategic and opportunity stick pricing. And for coal and solar, they are mostly consistent. They are basically with policy driven behavior. So next we have a comparison between region from 2019 to 2025. So region-wise total megawatt generation type comparison. So in this, we can see that black coal remains the primary source in NSW and Queensland for both years. Though the megawatt has slightly decreased in NSW, it has slightly increased in Queensland from 2019 to 2025. So and then next is OCGT. We can see that there is quite an increase in NSW. In Queensland and other states, it remains almost the same. But in Victoria also, we can see there is some increase. The most notable change from 2019 to 2025 is of solar, which has increased dramatically in NSW and Queensland and even in Victoria. So this basically shows a shift towards the renewable, and it's mostly being affected by technological innovations and policy of the government. Next we have is the megawatt distribution across price bands. So in this one, we can see that black coal is mostly bidding in band 1, band 2, and band 10. We have seen it in previous slides as well, but this is a comparison between 2019 and 2025. So the most notable change is that the solar has started bidding in band 4 to band 6. So there is this high green line. It shows us that solar has started bidding in higher prices band, whereas in 2019 it was in mostly concentrated in band 1, and which was mostly negative prices as well. So from this from this previous slide, we can see that coal remains stable and predictable. Solar and OCGT, they are basically evolving their strategies, and they are embracing their high price exposure and broader participation in the market. So this indicates a transition towards a more dynamic and competitive market, which is basically being driven by renewables. Next, I have done this hourly bidding patterns of all solar, black coal, and OCGT. So as expected, we can see a clear bell-shaped curve in case of solar. The bidding starts after sunrise 4 to 5 and peaks around 3 to 4 p.m. And this basically tapers off by evening. So we can see that it's only during the daylight we can get solars, and there is a sharp spike at 4 p.m. This may signal that there is aggressive bidding near the sunset time. Next is black coal. As expected, we can see a spike in early morning and the afternoon around 6 to 7 a.m. to 2 to 3 p.m. This aligns with daily demand cycle, and bidding is mostly stable and consistent. Next is OCGT. So OCGT is the most expensive generation type, and as we can see, this mostly peaks during the evening hours when the prices reaches, sometimes they reach around 15,000 to 18,000 range. So that's when OCGT really powers up and they make money at that time. So that's all from my side. Now Thai will continue with the fifth part. Thank you for listening.
Hi everyone, my name is Quang Tai Nguyen. Welcome to my presentation. In my part, I will be presenting some key insights about the recent trends in the Australian's national electricity market, NEM, and also two investment recommendations based on the findings and backed up by research papers. The first part is the market overview of NEM market during the 6-year period ending in 2025. And one first key number that we have achieved is a 18.9% reduction in carbon emission intensity, bring us down to a 0.6 kilogram CO2 emission per megawatt hour. And this is a significant achievement and improvement. However, the rate is slowly improving. And secondly, renewable energy has reached a milestone of supplying 46%, almost half of Australia's total electricity as of December 2024. And this represents a fundamental shift in the energy mix. And one more insight is that we're seeing an infrastructure issues of coal power stations, with over 60% of them exceeds the 40-year-old mark. And this raises reliability concerns of operation and outage. And these metrics help us to understand why we're seeing a dramatic shift in the market dynamic. And next, there is a carbon emission intensity patterns that we have witnessed through the data. The first is there's a general trend that the emission peaks in the evening and fall at night. And this is general for all the states. However, for South Australia, there's a drop in the emission in the morning and it bounces back up. And this is due to its reliance on wind power. And for Tasmania, the emission rises throughout the day. And this is also because it relies on hydropower. And the key finding here is that most of the emission improvements occur between the 2020 and 2020 period, suggesting that further reductions will require more substantial infrastructure changes. And next, let us have a look at the change in bidding strategies. One aspect is the market dynamics. For renewable energy generators, they quadruple their output over the 6-year period and now have significantly contribute more market power, and hence it can command higher prices through strategic bidding. And traditional fossil fuel generators are experiencing the opposite trend. Reduced output share has led them to accept lower prices by bidding in mid-range price bands rather than competing at premium levels. And finally, for OCGT, while it still maintains a dominance in peak periods of contributing outputs, there's a diversified bidding strategy across multiple high price bands rather than focusing solely on the highest bands. And another aspect of the bidding strategies across generator types is the time factor. And it can be seen that for solar, the bidding peaks during late midday. For OCGT, it peaks in the evening. And for coal, it is special where it applies a binomial bidding strategy, while it peaks in the morning and in the evening. And now let's have a look at the first investment opportunity, which is into renewable assets. So what we can see for this investment opportunity is that first, it shows a strong growth of output contribution in the most recent years. It quadruple, supported by robust governmental policy, including the capacity investment scheme and the ambitious target of reaching 82% renewable energy by 2030. And economically, renewables have achieved cost leadership as the lowest cost form of energy generation in Australia, providing an even better competitive advantage. And as a result, we recommend focus on investment in the states of New South Wales, Queensland, and Victoria, where the grid infrastructure is more stable and demand growth is the strongest. And from a risk management perspective, investors should secure long-term power purchase agreements and seek approval under the capacity investment scheme to provide revenue uncertainty during the transition period. And lastly, the investment horizon for this asset should be long-term so that it aligns with the Australian policy, including the 2050 net zero emission target and the irreversible trend towards renewable energy. And another investment opportunity, but a different type, is gas-fired power plants. Even though gas serves as a crucial transition fuel, it offers lower emission than coal while providing better reliance and dispatchability that intermittent renewables cannot yet fully replace. However, the investor has to consider the risk because unlike renewable energy, gas receives no government support, and there's a significant policy risk because if there is any acceleration towards renewable targets in the policy, this could substantially impact the value of the power plants. And our recommendation for gas investment is to focus on highly efficient plants that can respond quickly to market needs and to the change in policy. And here, risk mitigation is crucial because investor need to concentrate. Because investor need a solid plans to transition the asset and converse as the market continue evolving. And in conclusion, we have 5 key takeaways for named market participants. Firstly, there's a clear transitioning toward renewable energy. And however, the carbon intensity improvements is slowing down, and this could continue in the future. In addition to that, renewable investment is a long-term opportunity, and this is supported by policy, economics, and market trends. On the other hand, gas investment is another opportunity. However, it should be approached with cautious with risk management. And most importantly, policy alignment is crucial for the success of this rapidly changing and evolving market. And this is our references that we use to support our assumptions in accordance with the data provided by the instruction. And that is the end for our presentation. We are Group 14, and thank you so much for listening.